Welcome to The Author Next Door, where hosts Angela Haas and Cassie Newell chat about the wild world of writing and publishing. Join them for weekly episodes and special monthly guests. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 46. I'm Cassie Newell, and I'm here with my co-host, Angela Haas. And this month, we're diving into some hot topics. Today, we're excited to talk to Heather and Jeffrey Kafer of High Gravity Productions to get behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to run an audiobook production company, along with working with your significant other. High Gravity Productions is a creation of Heather Costa and Jeffrey Kafer, husband and wife narration team, audiobook industry veterans with over 1,200 titles narrated combined and hundreds produced. Their premier audiobook choice for independent authors and publishers alike, and they live in Los Angeles with their children and their mini golden doodle. Welcome to the show, Heather and Jeffrey.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
And I was thinking, and you're doing 7 of my audiobooks. a lot of short romance books. That sounds like a crazy amount when I say 7, but I can't believe it'll be 7.
Exciting.
It's exciting. So exciting.
Not quite the
So
team.
working together as a married couple. Let me just start off with
Let's
that.
just go right for the jugular.
Let's go
Tell
right
us
for the
everything.
jugular.
Dish.
How does I'm guessing that has some unique dynamics. Like, how do you balance that creative collaboration with the business side of running a company?
So I think the reason it works is because we know each where our strengths are. So we kind of know there's different things that we each are responsible for. And then big decisions, we collaborate together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm going to say, you know how the old thing of just stay in your lane? I've learned to stay in my lane. You know, she is for reasons that will become apparent, she is the people person. She gets to talk to the authors. I'm not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to do that at all.
No, I do, but that's just, it's funny. We have a thing where I'm like, so I want to send this email to the author about something in my lane, and I'll show it to her, and she's like, I need to Heather this.
No,
up.
I don't say that. You say that.
I say, I need you to Heather this up.
Heather this up. I love it.
You know, if it's about finances, it tends to be blunt, right? There's not a lot of touchy-feely about
There's not a lot of touchy-feelies, right?
and Zelle payments or whatever it is.
Well, sometimes finances do make you cry. There are emotions there.
I don't want
I
to
would say.
the people stuff, right? She's good at it. Everybody likes her. A couple people like me, but really she is the face and the heart, as I like to say, of this company.
Oh, that's nice. I love that. Yeah, I think between Angela and I on doing this podcast, it was really interesting, our skills of what we thought we were doing at the beginning and how it's kind of evolved and changed over time too.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of figured out what each of us is kind of good at too. So I totally get that.
Yeah, we didn't know what we didn't know in the beginning. And I mean, we're planners, right? And we had plans for things, but you can have plans and you're like, oh, no one told us about this. Okay. And then you have to pivot, which we do. And I'm sure that is something you have all had to master, those pivots, or like you can have a plan, or maybe you're not planners. I don't know, but you have to have a, company like this and have it run smoothly. But I mean, tell us about like mastering some of those pivots along the way.
Well, so, we started out as narrators, right? And there's certain things we need to be responsible for as narrators, even if we're outsourcing the production of it. When you start a company and you have a roster of narrators and you have a bunch of editors, there's a whole slew of other nuanced things, like the tech stuff is different. And the accounting is very different. As it's not just me anymore invoicing for books that I've done. It's making sure everybody else is getting paid and making sure it's done according to various contracts we have, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the bigger the company, the bigger the small things are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know just from my experience, right? We auditioned a number of narrators, and then you have the whole editing side and you have the whole ALC side of that, which has been so beneficial to me
It's great, it's great to hear.
as an author. So I can imagine all the pieces and webs I don't see, but I appreciate that you handle them.
Too.
Behind the scenes stuff. Oh, we love it. That's
Yeah.
part of the job. We wouldn't do this if
Yeah,
we didn't love it.
that's true.
Yeah.
Right? You know, this is just part of the industry we live and work in.
Yeah.
Do you have
But there's
anything-
definitely, well, I was going to say there's definitely things that, we're like, yeah, this is solid. We got this. And then there'll be, because we're always looking, people that we work with, we're like, hey, if you think something's missing, or like we'll think something's clear and then maybe somebody missed something. And we're like, oh, okay, yep, nope, I got to put that here. So there's definitely like holes like
Right.
that we didn't realize, over the years that you kind of just figure out, pivot and
Pivot and figure it out.
exactly.
Yeah. And the industry is constantly moving too. So that always seems to be, whether you want to pivot or not, something that you have to consider too.
So you mentioned you were narrators, but before that, tell us a little bit more about how did you become a narrator? We had narrators on before and they were actors that decided, hey, this is another way to supplement my income. This is like acting, but it's just voice acting, which is different. So how did you get here? What were the early careers like
Yeah.
for both of you?
So I actually went to college for opera.
Ooh.
Really?
And I loved performing, but then I got so nervous doing it in front of people. And then one day my dad saw something about voiceover and I was like, that's an actual job. Like I realized because I always loved animation. And so I got into voiceover and I did that for several years. This was back 2004. I've been doing behind the mic, just industry stuff. And I did a lot of commercials and animation and corporate stuff. And
Oh, wow.
then Jeff was already doing audiobooks. We were friends back then. And we're friends now still, but he's like, oh, you're doing great in VO, And so I was like, oh, I want to try this. And then I booked my first audiobook and I was like, well, now what do I do?
You make the audiobook.
Yeah.
And then I started doing more and more audiobooks and realized I loved it because what I loved about animation, I could be all the characters in audiobooks. And then from there, it just grew and we love all the parts of the industry. And it just kind of evolved to, we got married and we were like, you know what, let's do this. And just kind of took off.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. It's really interesting because when we talk to writers, either you've been writing since you're itty bitty, that would be Angela, or you came to it later in life, that would be me. There's usually some kind of different story behind how it all starts. Yeah, that's really great. So I have the question of, I'm kind of curious, since you've done so many audiobooks and with indie authors specifically, when is a good time, do you think, in advising indie authors to consider audiobooks? Because it's such a growing market. It's a big investment, depending on how they want to, either buy it outright or try to profit share or whatever that is. Like, what advice do you give indie authors, when they should consider audiobooks?
You look at me. No, she turned her head.
I thought he wasn't allowed to talk to the authors.
I don't talk to the authors. Well, no, I mean,
I can answer.
I mean, we didn't really workshop this answer, but this is where I come from, the more pragmatic. I'm like, my thought is when you can afford it, or if you want to go the profit share, when you're assuming that the narrator, the team, whoever it is you're hiring, has a decent chance of making their money back as well. Right?
So when your book is doing well. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
When your book is selling well at a decent clip and, for somebody is going to make money doing this, right? Either you as an author, if you want the full rights to this, or if you want to do a royalty share where you're sharing in the good fortune of this success, that's a choice you guys get to make, right? The problem is when new authors automatically jump in and either they get sticker shock or they're not ready to afford the production of it, or, and this is kind of a problem, lack of a better word, on the narration side, which is why a lot of narrators won't do royalty share, because new authors sort of maybe just sort of hop into it thinking that it's a free audiobook, quote unquote. A
Oh.
lot of narrators kind of get burned on that and they don't go back.
For listeners who don't understand the difference, can you speak really quick about what does it mean to do a royalty share? And when I did my audiobooks through ACX, I just did it where I paid them outright, and I forgot what that piece is called, but I just paid them their fee, whatever that was, and then it's on me to do everything else.
So
can you speak to the difference?
Yeah. So per finished hour is what you're talking about, what you did, where it's an agreed upon rate up front, and then the author receives all of the profits from the sales of the audiobook. With royalty share, profit sharing, however you want to refer to it, you're going in 50-50 on the profits, and you're not paying anything up front to the company or the narrator. There's also something called royalty share plus, which is becoming more common as well, where the book for the company or the narrator looks like a good investment because it's the long-term game, really. So, okay, this makes sense. I will earn my money back and then some, based on the time that they spent or the investment that they made. But when you do royalty share plus, there is some money up front to the narrator or the company, which can help offset some of the overhead, if, for an editor or, whatever that looks like. And then you split. So sometimes if there's a book where it could be successful, but it's a bigger risk, maybe it's a longer title or it's just or is newer, that can help soften it a little bit to make it a little less risky.
Yeah. So what are the pros and cons of doing each of those? I'm sorry, finish that statement. But
what I was going to say is one of the challenges with new authors usually, or authors who have not done it, is they hop into the royalty share and they don't realize that the narrator actually has costs to do the book.
Not just their time.
Not just their time. So they have their time plus usually about $75 per finished hour for an editor.
Minimum. Yeah.
So a new narrator who's like, sweet, I got a book, I'm going to do this, and they outsource their editing, they could be out
their time,
$500 in, and so they're in the red from the day the book is released.
And for the right titles, for a company or narrator, that totally makes sense because it's a good investment. One other thing to speak to that is that as far as like when to do it, if you have a book that is, even if it is your first book, but you know that it's going to do well, or you're an author that has done well and it's your second book or whatever, there will be authors that will time the release so the audio comes out at the same time as the print and the Kindle, because there's a whole community of readers that only read in audio. So by not having audio, you're missing out on all of those people. And then one last thing I wanted to mention on that same thing is for newer authors, I really recommend being very cautious of this. It's a very easy button that you can select for, the virtual voice of your audiobook. And we have seen authors get slammed in reviews and they think, oh, it doesn't cost anything. It ends up hurting more than helping. So my biggest bit of advice is if you're not at a place where you can do an audiobook yet
with a human
narrator, wait, because you only get that first impression once, especially in the audio community. So, because once people listen and realize that's what it is, it's bad. So,
and you don't want to alienate potential readers like that.
It's weird as an audiobook company to say, maybe hold off on making your audiobook. It's kind of like, but I mean, it would be ingenuous if we came on the show and said everybody should make an audiobook, because there's going to be people who are not ready for audio given the costs.
Yeah.
And I would hate
Well,
to
and the
see.
marketing is so different, you know? The marketing
Yeah.
when you release it separately.
Right. So oftentimes we'll see authors either, like I said, they'll do it as simultaneous, or one helps the other, the sales.
Yeah.
So the audio, or they'll have a print come out for a different book, and the audio, like even if they're not the same book, they end up helping each other. So
Yeah.
It's all
I
about
noticed that in Goodreads for myself,
Mhm.
like, because all versions get combined, at a point. So all the reviews come under just the title, which is fabulous.
I'm certainly not an expert in all things marketing of books, but what I have seen authors do is they don't actually market the audiobook per se any more than you'd market the Kobo version of your book, right? It's just a platform to read, right? So if
Mm.
you're just advertising your book, those people who want the audiobook version, they'll find it on Amazon. It's right there. It's one of the little squares,
Yeah.
True.
right? So just advertise your book. And the evidence to support that, when somebody gets a book bub, I have seen on some of the royalty share titles that I've done, when somebody gets a book bub, there'll be a spike in the audiobook.
Yep.
Audiobook people listen to
Interesting.
audiobooks on the platform of their choice. I don't read books just because I don't have time. I listen to my books.
Mhm.
So if I see a book in BookBub, even if it's for free on Kindle, I'm not going to buy it or,
We'll go find
download
it
it.
on audio.
But I will
Mhm.
absolutely go and burn a credit on it if it looks interesting.
Right.
Right. So,
In book signings, having
yeah.
authors that we have seen that have it in audio, but they don't have a way for a reader to buy it in audio at a book signing.
QR code.
The number of
Yeah. I did
interesting.
do that. I brought QR codes of the codes given to me by Audible. As I was meeting people at a conference recently, and that was really fun just to be able to give a free book. And of course, I did my first book hoping I could hook them in to the next ones. But I also find, there's a lot of discussion for more intermediate authors, if you will, that have started audiobooks too, being in one platform versus multiple retailers. I find it interesting because, speaking of BookBub, that's Chirp, right? You can't use Audible and BookBub. But, I've contemplated, and I have had those conversations in email with Heather, but I've contemplated, like, do I stay in Audible exclusively, trying to, get all the benefits of that? It is the largest retailer for audiobooks. I mean, that's quite clear. However, they're also doing some interesting things and changing the royalty rates too, which isn't great either. So I'm curious, when you're talking to new authors too, do you advise them of particular platforms at all? Because some of that is pretty new to a lot of authors too.
So it's a spreadsheet game, right?
Mm.
Part of that might be, I know. So luckily you can switch, right? So you can sort of A/B test it, right? What works, what doesn't. For
Yeah.
example, your shorter books, I don't know that people will necessarily burn a credit on them, but
Yeah.
will they buy it a la carte?
But they do buy it.
Right. But you should be able to look in your stats. Are they buying it a la
Yeah.
carte or are they using a credit? So that's something for you to know, right? And so then versus the listens on Spotify, whatever that translates to, say, is your book something that you think might sell in libraries?
Right.
We're doing a historical romance series, and she wants it in libraries because that's a different market.
Yeah.
So kind of depends on your.
Yeah. So really, authors really need to consider the market for their genre,
Right.
it sounds like.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people, I can just say from my experience, people do use credits, but it's interesting. I see them towards books 3 and 4 and not books 1 and 2. I see them buying them because they're like $6. It's like a cup of coffee, a latte, a fancy latte. And so then they're like, oh, I'm good. Just, if they have them to burn, you can kind of see it coming in the later books.
And they're like, they know that they love it, so they want more.
Yeah,
And
they've got the feel,
good.
and I get the read through, but definitely book 1 is the bestseller for sure.
Is your plan later to bundle them? Because we see a lot of the value shoppers a lot of times want, I mean, you don't have to announce it or anything, but
No.
I will
The secret.
terms, a lot of success comes from bundling once the initial sales have sort of plateaued. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's interesting because that's the same concept with ebooks, right? We bundle those in series. It's the same concept,
Sure.
when you're trying to reach that market, whether you're in KU or not, depending again on your market. But yeah, it's something I'll definitely consider how to do that. It might be a query question to Heather later because I don't know. But yeah, I think that's interesting because I'm seeing that more and more because we're big listeners of audiobooks too, me and my husband. And so he's in it in a lot of series where if they bundle, sometimes he gets irritable because he's been listening the whole time. And then they'll just be like, oh, 1 credit for the first 5 books. And he's like, I did 5 credits. So yeah, it's one of those where you're like,
Congratulations,
well,
do it early.
right. Wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you have to weigh those things out too. That's really interesting though, for sure.
So take us through the process of working with a production company, because I didn't know actually that production companies existed for audiobooks, because the way I was coached, it was like you just go through Amazon, you find your narrators there, pick your level, and you listen to auditions in a certain way, and then it's all through ACX. Or you can use Findaway Voices, but I found just based on reviews, people are going through ACX because then they can just post there and it's a little easier. When you're using a production company, you still upload your book to ACX, but then you help with the behind the scenes of getting it ready. So tell me how working with a production company actually works, a little bit more about that process.
So most books we do through ACX as the platform, but there are many authors we work with that they don't, because they're going wide and they're not even going through that. So then we deliver files in a different way. So there's no requirement for us. It's whatever is best for the author. So when an author contacts us and they're interested in having their book in audio, we have several forms that we ask them to fill out just so that we can gather the information that they may not know we need. That helps to figure out, if they're looking for solo, dual, multi-narrator, duet, or duet style multicast. And how many narrators and how many POVs and the specifics about the characters, because we try to do authentic casting whenever possible. So if it's an own character, like an underrepresented minority character, then we want to make sure that we're casting it accordingly with a narrator that identifies as such. And also getting the word count and understanding the breakdown. And with that information, then we can also usually give kind of a ballpark price range off the bat of what it would be to produce it in whatever style they're looking for. And often authors will say, hey, I'm interested in like 3 different styles. Can we talk about price quotes for all of them? And then we can get into all the little details of that. And the range is often because every narrator we work with is exceptional, truly. The ones that are on our roster, they're very well vetted. So even when there is a price range, it's not like, a bargain-based narrator you're going to get for it's just based on what their rate is. And it's important to us that we pay narrators what they're worth. So we ask what their rates are whenever we can. And we also always pay our narrators the same on a project. So if it's a 4-narrator cast and one narrator is significantly higher, everybody gets that higher rate in books that we.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
And so then once I have all that information and we've discussed everything that we offer, like all the different, from the production to the marketing to, everything that we do, and the author's like, yes, I'd like to move forward, then depending upon how the author would like to receive the information. We either send out auditions to our roster, and depending upon the specs, it's either, sometimes we just handpick certain people that we think are perfect for it, or sometimes we'll narrow it down and cast a wider net. It all depends. And we review all the auditions that come in and narrow down and then send those to the author. Sometimes authors will prefer to cast directly from Audible links. So we'll curate those based on, again, the casting specs that we feel are the best fit. And we'll go back and forth until the author is happy and has found their perfect team of narrators. It's a very collaborative process. We also have authors that come to us and say, we want these narrators. And whether they're on our roster or not, we are happy to work with them as long as they're professional narrators. And yeah, so anybody that they want to work with, we can happy to arrange that and cast them. And
so really you're the business side behind all that, because as a production company, you're also doing all the editing.
Yes.
As well, which I'm like, yes, please. Don't ever want to do that. I hate doing the editing on my own books. So,
yes,
but
all of it.
yeah. So do you also upload for the ACX as well? So, because I haven't had to upload anything. And then I was just going to say, as a production company, you've added on this nice service that I really enjoy, which is the ALC piece as well. I've tried to curate my own in addition, but I think too, it's really helpful because if you don't have that directly in your newsletter to pull out that specific group, it's also grown for me, which has been fabulous. And I can't speak enough about ALCs, which is advanced listening copies, if you're not familiar with that. But we do the same thing, right, with print and ebooks with ARCs. And I think that piece is so important because it really starts to share voice when you do the book. So what else does a production company do in general? Did we hit all of those things? I just want to make sure.
One of the things we're doing more of is for select titles, entering them into various awards. So the Audies, the Sultry Listener Awards, the Silvas. There's another one, the Grammys. Which
And
I don't know if there's any production companies who do that other than the big publishers.
yeah.
In Random House. So we're kind of cool in that way.
And for listeners, my book, Buttercream and Second Beginnings, was submitted for consideration for a Grammy. That's why I'm cheesily laughing and very excited about it. That was such a surprise. I have to admit, I was just like, wait, what? Is this real? It's not April 1st. Hold on.
Love celebrating authors that we work with. Authors in general, the industry in general. We love celebrating authors and narrators, and that is through ALC and other social media. We make reels, and so outside of that, that would be other things that we do. We do a lot of marketing promotion on social media to celebrate the narrators and the authors. And when we go to different book events, signings, and conferences,
it's all about the authors.
It's all about, yes, it is. And we have them on, banners and our step and repeat and postcards, narrators that come with us. Every narrator gets postcards of books that they've done with us to celebrate those. We do little chocolate book covers.
I love it.
Yeah. So at any point when we do a book, it's not like a one and done for us ever. It's kind of like once you're part of our High Gravity family, you're kind of always part of it.
Well, I have to admit, I feel very honored that the words were chosen, but definitely the narrators and yourself for the editing deserve all the credit if we get anywhere further in the process. Yeah, it's been a great experience on my side. So
happy to hear that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight some of the differences then I experienced just going through ACX on my own, and then Cassie's going with High Gravity. And I think that's what people might not understand is I think the investment is a little higher working with a production company, especially depending on I'm writing 90K, 100K novels. That's a good investment. However, the differences are how you're curating the narrators, because I got 85 auditions for my sci-fi novel. And that was so overwhelming for me to go through each one, because out of that, there were really only 10 that were even possible. I had just some that either males that could not do the female voice and vice versa. You know, I had this really amazing man who had such a like huge acting resume in like Westerns in Hollywood, but he was trying to do the female and he was like in his 80s. An amazing resume, not right for my book, but just going through all those auditions, I was getting so fried because it was just like, oh God, this isn't going to work. And that's why I decided when I opened it up to a duet, I finally found my people. But that was a huge part of my time. And then, so that's a huge benefit, is having you narrowing it down to knowing that this isn't right for this project. And then really, it probably makes the choice of the author easier when they don't have 85 to go through. They have maybe 5 that you said these will fit or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge benefit. And then you're helping with marketing, helping with promotion, the advanced listening copies, all that stuff does not come to help you when you're going just through Amazon. And that's why I just I tabled all the promotion for my sci-fi series, because I need to circle back and relaunch it and finish it. But the romance is outselling those for me. And so I'm focusing on romance, but I had already started my audiobook for the superhero sci-fi. And I even got overwhelmed with like trying to figure out what to do with 50 codes that are different and trying to get those reviews. And I was just like, I mean, I will go back to it. It's out there, but the marketing piece without having any help was so overwhelming. And there's some people who enjoy all that and they have time to do it. But I think when you're stuck with like trying to do other things, it's helpful to have a production company behind you helping you with checking all those boxes. So listeners, that's like some of the pros with working with like a High Gravity Productions, because you're really part of, like, I love how you said that they're part of the family forever. You know, it doesn't just like one and done. And it's like, so that's what I feel is such a difference.
You had me superhero sci-fi.
Yes.
Jeffrey's like, I'm going to get ya, Angela.
Yeah. I mean, my
science fiction. And I love comics.
Yeah, it's like Avengers meets Star Wars, but all the Avengers are older women. Like I really wanted Yeah, like sort of picturing Angela Bassett out there as a superhero with like powers as she aged, and like using what we hate about aging as females, like turning hot flashes into fireballs, and like that's a superpower. You know, but also really exploring women truly collaborating and not having just a 20-something superhero. It's like, you know, a 40 to 60-year-old out there with 40 to 60-year-old female problems. So trying to save the day. So yes, I'm hopeful that if I get these romances out, that I'd love for you all to finish that series with like the narration. That would be, I mean, absolutely so fun to hear that. You know, so
the other challenge that a lot of authors have going on just straight through ACX is they may fall in love with the voice, but they don't know necessarily what the author's process afterward is in terms of editing and proofing. With a production company like us, we have a team of editors and proofers whom we have worked with. They follow our process, which is a unified process. Everybody works exactly the same way, and they all follow our process, and they've got a lot of experience, and they're doing the work in a way that we trust. If you hire some random narrator on ACX you're like, great, they'll do it for $200 a finished hour. Well, okay, so at that rate, how are they hiring a proofer and an editor? Probably not. Chances are they're doing it themselves. Well, that opens up a problem. You don't edit your own books by yourselves for the most part. right?
That's correct.
You need fresh eyes on it,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times as a narrator I've gotten pickups back where the proofer says, you said this wrong. And I listen, I'm like, no, I didn't. I listen again. I said it right. On the third time I listened, I'm like, oh, geez, I did say it wrong, right? Because as a narrator, when you're proofing your own narration, you tend to you think you said it right. So you gloss over it, right? You miss things, right? Or they use some automated, AI garbage to do it, and it doesn't work as well as it should either. Stuff gets missed is my point of this, right? So just hiring a narrator in A6, you kind of have to babysit and ask the right questions. Are you going to use a third-party editor? Are you going to proof this yourself? What is your process?
And some do.
And some do,
Yeah.
of course. But that's the thing with A6. It's the Wild West. You just don't know what you get for the price unless you know to ask exactly the right questions.
Right. That's great. I think too, prepping authors for audiobooks, because I have to admit, I was surprised at all the work to go into it on the author side. Because I call it the manuscript, but the script that you prep, right? Between, for my particular romance, I have dual point of view. So one whole chapter is done by the male and one whole chapter is done by the female, but we have, areas I have to highlight for male to do those character voices and so forth. And then thinking about the types of character voices too. All those things that you may not think of so much outside of when you're creating your book, that you have to break it all down, and that takes quite a bit of time. I've gotten pretty good at it now, but I can imagine though, with my novel, like that's going to take me a little bit longer to like really go through it. But I found, wow, this is a lot more work. I remember thinking, I love the freedom of creativity to give to the narrators. Like, I don't want to stifle. I like sometimes when I would hear back what my narrators were doing, I was like, oh, that's so much better than what I was thinking in my head. Like, maybe they should act this way or that way. Like, I also think allowing them to do their jobs and have that creativity is really great. But I'm kind of curious, like, are there things you would recommend for authors to really consider before they jump in? Because I know that for me, that was a bit of work and I was like, oh, I'm unprepared.
Yeah, I've even heard that your names, like for fantasy authors, like thinking of how the name looks on paper and then announcing it 100 times, like as the listener might be like, okay, hello? So yeah, how can authors better think about things and prepare when they're writing?
We have authors that will provide pages and pages of very detailed, because they have envisioned the sound, the pronunciations, everything a specific way. And that is great. We are happy to take all of that, share it with the narrators. We have other authors that they just check a box that says pronunciations decided by the narrators. So in a fantasy, for example, they're like, we want to just hear how they do it. Or they just give very, very simple information. So it really depends on how involved you want to be up front in the creative part. Because once the narrators start working, they take whatever's been provided, and then now it's up to them to make the creative choices. That can't be edited really after they've done a 10-hour book to be like, oh, actually, that character that you did the whole book should have had, this accent. Like, that's something we need to know up front. But, some authors will provide detail and if you ever don't want to highlight your scripts, that is something we provide. We can talk.
Okay, so is it like a screenplay script? Is that what you had to do, Cassie? Like change it, or just you're just highlighting
your book? And I was just highlighting, okay, so this is the male character. So during his chapter, anything that's female, I would go in and highlight.
Gotcha.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And the same thing. And I have to admit, it's kind of helpful, especially if you're doing like me, where I'm launching them all at the same time. This is also where I go through my last read of edits to make sure things are right, because I'm like, oh, that's not the the one manuscript I want wrong, is them. So it's kind of helpful to do that process. And I also think it helps too when I'm looking and I'm going, oh, I could add she said if it looks like it's something that you wouldn't know otherwise who it was coming from. So I have done those things, but not egregiously.
Yes, that's a very good point. So with dual narration, the only thing we need to know from the author is whose POV chapter, or if there is a scene break, if it changes POV. With duet, whether it's the author or we highlight, because when we deliver the manuscript to the narrators in a duet, like Cassie was saying, it needs to be like the male in her chapter, any dialogue for him, he needs to be able to look at that and just read his lines. So that it can be recorded and then spliced together. Some narrators, like when we do duet, we actually record together in the booth, all on one line.
In here.
Right. Which is really fun to play off of each other. But a lot of duet and multicast performances are not done that way. And that's the mastering and the editing, which we handle. So if it's a multicast, for example, and we have several titles that are 7, 8, 9, 10 narrator books, we handle the highlighting in different colors, but we would need from the author, as far as prep, to answer your question there, just a key, like the key of which narrator for which character and which narrator, if they have a preference, to do any secondary characters. In a duet, any secondary, like side, like there's a waitress. Well, that obviously is going to be done by the narrator who's doing the female POV. In a multicast, with 10 narrators, we need to know, hey, who do you want this bus driver to be narrated by? And oftentimes in a multicast, let's say there's 2 POVs and the other, in a 10 narrator, and the 2 POVs and the other 8 are secondary characters. Usually any incidental on top of that is divided among them. And we keep the POV narrators as just those characters to have even more differentiation. And then that's where we cast narrators that can really differentiate between characters. So they may be doing, Jim as a secondary character, but then when the bus driver comes in, that bus driver sounds so different from Jim, nobody would even know.
Oh, that it's the same actor or narrator doing it.
So for those situations, we cast narrators that we know have a really wide palette, wide variety, wide range. And also we really get to know our narrators' voices. So oftentimes when an author comes to us, we already have ideas in our mind of who's good for it before we even send out auditions, just because we really learn their voices and how they do their male and female characters and how they do their accents and their pacing. And
right.
Because sometimes authors will be like, this is the sound that I'm looking for, but they don't quite necessarily understand how to formulate it in words, which I totally get. So we'll take those cues and kind of cast from there.
One of my last questions is, there's been this surge of audiobooks with sound effects. And when Cassie and I went to what was 20 books to 50K, now Author Nation, I remember when we were walking around the vendor day booths, there was one and they had lots of great marketing. I was drawn to their booth, but it was a sci-fi audiobook with all the wind and spaceship and all kinds of things. Is that an option? But I've heard that some readers love it and some listeners love it. Some listeners find it so distracting, like they just can't focus in on the heart, which is the voices and the story. But is that an option with your production company? Is the sound effects, the full movie stuff?
So, I mean, it depends how much they want.
Right. It's again, collaborative process.
Yeah. It depends how much they want. We have a team who does, who adds sound effects. We did it for a couple of children's books, actually, and they were subtle. And some other books.
Yeah, that would be cool.
The author wanted subtle, and I guess the overall kind of a personal preference.
Yeah. And then others will have 2 versions. They'll have a graphic audio version of it.
Right.
Okay.
So that, if they're looking to do both, where they want one done one way and one done another. And we've done where there's, like he was saying, more subtle, and we've done bigger ones where it's just like little accents. And then there's others that could be more of a total full production, like more of like a movie, like you're talking about, more of like a radio play. So it really depends on what the author's looking for, but those are all things that we absolutely can provide.
I can't like escape into it because I just picture someone in the booth with like the horse clocks, like something going and like a bell, and like I can't like escape into the sound effects because I seen too many behind the scenes, and I'm picturing like, is someone crunching a bottle? What is that? My brain doesn't work that way, but I know a lot of people, especially thriller, sci-fi, people love it.
So one that I listened to, we did not produce this, but I listened to it. It's on Audible. It's called Lock and Key. And that one is sort of the standard by which I judge other ones. And the reason for that is because what you're talking about is they did it through binaural recording. What that means is they have a styrofoam head in a room, and they would actually, like, this scene takes place in a cabin. So they would take this microphone, and the entire cast would be in there, and they would have the microphone in the center, and them walking around. That would be recorded. Them banging on stuff, whatever, and they would add some sci-fi.
Wow.
But it was all recorded with them in a room around this microphone, and it sounds incredible because you know it's real.
So that's
way more theatrical.
That is another way. That's not done in post-production. That's
correct.
done actually in studio, done that
so
way.
Cassie, yours could be like in a kitchen, like a bakery, or like baking and like ovens slamming
through audio.
Yeah.
That's what I would need.
We charge extra for smell of it.
Do you? I love it. It's so great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been great. I think too, we've got a lot of authors that are, either in the beginning or middle and further on in their career that have kind of dipped their toes in. So this is really great. Thank you so much. So I think it's time for tales. I couldn't remember. It was like,
we were doing table topics. We went through those. Now it's tales. These are just fun questions. This pertains because there was a pet in the pre-production meeting of this podcast. Tell me about any pets you had as a kid.
I had a terrier poodle mix that was an absolute spawn of Satan. My mother loved that dog, and I'm like, Mom, the dog terrorizes me. It was mean and nasty and like nobody but Mom.
Oh my gosh.
I wonder what that says about your mom thinking of you if she's like, no, the dog stays.
Well, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, dogs, kids, I could see it. I'm just kidding.
So yeah, that
Obviously.
was my... I probably should have ended this on a more positive note.
We have a good dog now. Okay, so I think the next podcast episode is exploring your childhood trauma with pets, and we can just get into that.
Up a little bit.
My mom had a bird when I was an infant, apparently, and it would sit on the back of my baby seat. And whenever I would start to stir, the bird would then start flying around to tell her that I was awake.
Oh,
a sweet little.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so much better than mine.
Oh my gosh.
Cassie.
I've had so many pets, but I'm going to go with the most exotic and the most crazy story. So I'm an Air Force brat, and we were living in Oklahoma. My father rolled off onto the side of the road. We're all in the truck, and we're like, what's going on? And he grabs a paper bag and puts something in the paper bag, puts it in the back of the truck with me. And I'm going, what is in that bag? It's moving. It was a tarantula. So we had a tarantula. We called him Creepy Crawly. And I had it for most of middle school. And we'd let it out and kind of let it walk around. And so I'm not really afraid of spiders at all. Yeah. But we had a pet tarantula of all things.
How do you bond with a tarantula?
You don't.
You don't.
I mean, no, it's just something to look at. And my dad was just kind of amazed with it. It ate a lot of crickets. That's about all I can tell you there. And
Eat a lot of
my mom was just like, it's in a terrarium. Like, we're not hanging out all the time with it. So yeah.
We had all kinds of things because my dad, when he was growing up, like he even had a caiman that his father brought home and it lived in the bathtub. Poor
A
thing.
what?
A
A
what?
caiman, an alligator, a little caiman,
Oh.
one of those little.
You
Yeah.
had a
So
diamond. Wow.
yeah. So they didn't have a cat at that time because that didn't mix. But so my dad would bring home, like we had rabbits, we had finches and chickadees and all kinds of things. But what I remember the most is do you remember Fraggle Rock?
Yes.
Yes, obviously. So the dog Sprocket on there, we had a dog that looked exactly like Sprocket. And we named it Sprocket.
With the
And
little
so,
hair that was
yeah, like the whiskers and the beard, like it was a poodle thing, but it looked exactly like Sprocket from Fraggle Rock. So, and then I had a black cat that was born on Friday the 13th. And my 5-year-old brain was like, well, we're naming it Friday, Abby. And that's the name. So it was called Friday.
That's
really
cool.
creative. But yeah.
I love it.
So
I
lots
love
of
it.
pets.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps with visibility. Next week, we're doing a special Writer Beware episode where we discuss scams that are there and how to avoid them. Until then, keep writing, keep doing. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining today's episode of The Author Next Door. Be sure to like, follow, and tell us your thoughts of this week's episode. Angela and Cassie would love to hear from you.